After months of ignoring and not interacting with the Bureau project, I finally have unlocked the legendary tier Italian cruiser Venezia, which I think is probably one of my favorite cruisers in the game at this point, actually. There are few things more satisfying than coming up against an enemy destroyer and absolutely obliterating it with the Venezia's sap firing main battery guns. We're going to see a few examples of that in this battle, and I think I'll just call the shots as they happen because I think there's a bit of good decision making here on my part in the Venezia. So we spawn somewhere between the Bravo and the Charlie caps, and the idea right now is that I want to follow this friendly Shimakaze. He's sort of headed in between Bravo and Charlie, and my hope is that he'll be able to provide some intelligence data and reveal whatever enemies might be pushing in this direction. Then the idea is we want to make a turn to the right. We're coming up near an island by the Charlie cap, and if we can turn to the right and start reversing toward the cap, hopefully we're in a good position to provide support to the Shimakaze if he reveals, for example, an enemy destroyer in that cap. Of course, Shima is taking his time. I'm not exactly sure what he's trying to do. Perhaps approach the cap with caution. It's turning red now, so there is an enemy DD in there. And for the moment, we, I think, are at least angled to everything that could possibly demolish us. So, if the enemy destroyer spots us, we should be in a good position to eliminate the possibility of being dev-struck or anything like that. But we also want to post up as close to the cap as possible so that we can assist the Shima. The only problem is he appears to be distracted by the 3 red ships that are north of the Bravo cap, and he's heading away from Charlie in order to, I guess, launch torpedoes in that direction. Fair enough, although I would prefer it, since I'm still here, that he gets into the cap and spots the enemy destroyer. He might be hesitant to do it because the Shimakaze, of course, is not any kind of effective gunboat that can dispatch enemy destroyers easily. But if you're a Shimakaze and you've got a Venezia a couple kilometers away from you, you'll probably be in good shape. However, the Shimakaze will not be able to succeed if that Wooster out there pushes in further and gets into the Charlie cap, so he's become target number 1. We want our destroyers to support us by spotting the enemy destroyers inside of the Charlie cap, but we have to keep in mind that we need to prioritize our firepower. Wooster is a light cruiser with a radar, and if the Shimakaze gets within 10 kilometers of that guy, it could spell doom for our teammate. Now, of course, Wooster is bow tanking this direction, and so we choose to shoot at Ohio instead. The sap may be able to be more effective against his armor, and there we get not a very great salvo, but we're keeping an eye on Wooster. He does appear to have straightened out. We'll take a shot at him, assuming he's going to start reversing, aiming up into the side plating, so that hopefully we can strike him pretty good with sap, but of course he goes forward instead of reversing, so our prediction is rendered moot. He's approaching the Charlie cap, though, and I'm thinking at this point, in retrospect, I might have wanted to switch to AP because he continues to give broadside. There we've got a much better aimed salvo on the Wooster. It makes contact, does decent damage, and then the battleship behind me there, I think, hurts him a little bit more. Is he still broadside, though? Because we have switched to the AP, and we're hoping that maybe we can strike the Citadel here with this salvo. We're taking fire from various other enemy battleships, but the Venezia is tanky. At least if it's fighting a battleship with guns smaller than 457. It's got 30 millimeters of armor plating everywhere, so the Ohio is a problem. But the Shimakaze on the enemy team is an even bigger problem, and this is the power of Venezia. 10,000 damage on the Shima. Could have been a dev-struck, perhaps, if more than 6 shells had hit. But our worst fears have come to be realized. The Shimakaze is caught by the Wooster's radar. I think he's got an island between himself and the Wooster, so he might be safe. And ultimately, he does end up taking out the Wooster. So good for him, I guess. It's better to be cautious when getting into a cap instead of dying in the first 5 minutes after accomplishing nothing. That much can certainly be said for the Shimakaze. I think he's done an all right job there. I just hope he can provide us vision of the enemy Shimakaze. We've lost vision of that guy, and we cannot sail straight into the Charlie Cap right now. Not with Stalingrad there, and not with the two enemy battleships posted north of the Bravo Cap. If we sail in that direction, then it's a good possibility that they'll be able to get our broadside, and that ultimately isn't going to help with things. The enemy team has lost 2 ships. We've also lost 2, so this is still anybody's game, although the blue team has secured both the Alpha and Bravo caps. We're now caught in a situation where we're facing bow in toward an Ohio and another battleship because this Shimakaze is spotting us. So we're going to have to eliminate him if we want to extricate ourselves from this situation. You don't want to be stuck bow in a cruiser to battleships like this. It's not going to end well for you. It would be much better for us to get into a kiting position. Unfortunately, enemy Shima takes out the friendly Shima, but he gets finished off by the friendly battleship, who is approaching the Charlie Cap from the eastern flank. And now that the Shima has been eliminated and we are no longer spotted, we can get into a kiting position and assume a more defensive posture against this Ohio, who is right on the edge of our detectability. We managed to not get spotted in the turn, and as soon as we've completed the turn and tightened up the angle, then we take a shot at the Ohio. We're going to turn the other way and try to get the torpedoes on target, but I think Ohio is going to end up avoiding all of them. I think also we want to continue being angled in this direction, at least for the moment. There is a Conqueror and a Navarin out there, but I guess they aren't really looking in this direction. So perhaps we'll be able to go dark and turn, heading more toward the center of the map. That seems to be where all the action is, and as far as the game stands, the point situation is still close. We've got a blue battleship inside of the Charlie Cap trying to flip it. But the big concern in my mind right now is the 2 remaining enemy destroyers. It looks like one might be approaching the Bravo Cap. I don't know where the other one is. He was last spotted near Alpha. And we have our last remaining friendly destroyer inside of the Alpha Cap. He doesn't appear to have much support. So we're going to head in that direction and try to get closer to Bravo. It's now turning red, and that will mean the enemy destroyer is in there. The big problem with Venezia, even though it's great, as we've seen so far, at dealing damage to destroyers, which is a very effective thing in terms of battle impact, destroyers, I think, to this day, still have the most battle impact, and anything that can effectively deal with them quickly, like the Venezia's SAP, is going to be valuable. But of course, you need the destroyers to be spotted in order to deal with them, and Venezia doesn't have any tools of its own that can be used to spot destroyers. There is no sonar, there is no radar. Instead, we've got a spotter plane and a smoke screen. The smoke screen can, of course, be both offensive and defensive. We've used it defensively to conceal our turn as we headed back into this direction, and theoretically, if this cap was not surrounded by a mostly full-health Ruprecht and a Navarin, we might be able to even push in and deal with that enemy destroyer effectively. But he's just been spotted on the mini-map right over there. He's leaving the Bravo Cap. He's secured it. That means Reds hold the center, and I think they're going to continue to hold on to Charlie. The blue battleship inside of there is in a fight with the Ruprecht. He is, I think, sailing toward the Ruprecht, and he's on low HP. He's not going to be able to secure that cap before going down, which means this game, even though we are ahead by 300 points, this game is still not in the bag for the blue team. There's more work to be done, And the most crucial work to be done is dealing with the enemy destroyers, especially since the blue battleship has gone down. That leaves only me, a cruiser, and one remaining enemy DD left versus the two battleships and the enemy destroyers. But in this kind of situation, with 5 minutes left to go, there are a few choices. Number one, we may be able to get inside of the Bravo cap and secure it. We're going to need to do that because the Reds cannot be allowed to hold Bravo for that long. If they do, they can overtake us on points. It's only a matter of time. The score is 532 to 451, and there's just under 5 minutes left to go. Luckily for us, the enemy Navarin appears to be shooting HE, and I think he's going to do that for the entirety of the battle. Navarin has good HE characteristics, to be sure, but I think the AP would be a better choice. He doesn't really seem to have the aim down either. No offense to him, but that salvo came nowhere close. It might have been a blind shot. And now we are unspotted. Well, I take that back. We just got revealed. We're going to smoke up, but it was the Ketsonis that was spotting us. He, of course, has radar. He's caught us in the radar, which could be disastrous, but the radar runs out. The Prinz Ruprecht takes a shot and misses, thanks in large part to our turn. And Navarin's reload is so long that, well, I don't think he got the opportunity. And even if he had, it probably would have been HE. But that's when the last remaining friendly destroyer calls for our assistance. And I am willing to listen to him. He is the only one that's going to be capable of spotting the remaining two enemy destroyers. And there's one, the Z-52, with a lot of full HP. So since he's spotted, we're going to take a shot at him. We're going to finish off most of his remaining HP. And I think if we continue further forward, we'll have the island between ourselves and the two remaining battleships, which should offer us some amount of protection. The friendly cruiser on the other side of the map is in Charlie. He's working on securing that. That will be our second cap. So all we need to do is prevent the DDs from taking Alpha. We sink one of them and net the Confederate medal in the process. And the friendly DD playing defensively still has vision of the Z-52. I'm not sure what the friendly DD is. It must be something with sonar. We get one opportunity to shoot the Z-52 through the gap between the islands, and that's all it takes because of the lethality of SAP versus enemy destroyers. The Z-52 goes down, the friendly cruiser secures the Charlie cap, and that leaves the two remaining battleships. At this point, since we have the cap advantage, we should win. We don't need to pick a fight with either of the battleships. Doing so, I think, would be too risky. We are on fairly low health. We've got maybe a little bit over a third of our HP bar left, but we don't want to take any chances here. We've secured the win conditions. The cap is taken on Charlie. It's been defended on Alpha. The friendly DD did go down in the process, but thanks to our spotting and our taking out the remaining two enemy destroyers, that right there should have secured the win. And happily, the Prinz Ruprecht is on fairly low health. He is fighting with the friendly cruiser, which I think is a bit of a risk. But if we look at the minimap, we can see the cruiser is angled away from the Prinz Ruprecht, trying to gain distance. I think he's close enough that he's spotted, so he's really got no other choice. But a fire is burning on Ruprecht, and that should be enough to take him out, which will guarantee the victory. That leaves only the Navarin left, and well, the Navarin has not really demonstrated yet that he's going to be capable of winning this match. If perhaps he had been shooting AP at me earlier, I would have been a little more concerned, but even if Navarin manages to push into the Alpha cap or the Delta cap, he simply doesn't have enough time, and if he were to sink me, I think we would still be victorious. He was last spotted heading toward Alpha. I was thinking maybe he was still out there on that side of the map, just checking to see what the friendly cruiser was, a San Luis, so maybe there was no reason to be concerned about whether he would come out on top versus the Prinz Ruprecht. That thing remains a little bit cracked. But where is the Navarin with the final 30 seconds left to go? He's not over here. Where could he have gone? Did he go for the Alpha cap? Well, it's certainly not turning red, so he's not inside of it. Less than 20 seconds left to go. Will he reveal himself? Yes, there he is. He's gone around the Alpha Cap, not into it, and he's come out the other side, continuing to shoot the HE. Does a little bit of damage, but of course, it is nowhere near good enough for taking us out. So we're able to walk away with a victory, thanks in large part to Venezia's efficacy versus enemy destroyers. However, that being said, we did get 3,500 base XP, which I think is good. Most of that is down to taking out the destroyers. San Luis did well for himself also. But in the end, you do need competent teammates in order to win battles like this. This is a team game. And thankfully, this time on the blue team, we got some good assistance from the friendly DDs. They at least provided the vision we needed to be effective in impacting the outcome of the battle. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.